Hello, our gorgeous soul tribes, and welcome back to Divinity Within. We've got the lovely Lisa and Sherri with us today, and we're going to be talking about breaking the loop and how to stop thought projections, energy hijacks, and mental noise. So, this will be a really, really great episode to have a notepad and pens to write tips down today because there's so much happening astrologically and all the retrogrades we've just walked through, plus the eclipses, because we're in eclipse season. We just had the lunar eclipse yesterday. We've got the partial solar eclipse coming up, which will be the 21st of September. So really good to clear all of the junk drawers in the house, as well as like clean our auras and clean our space leading up to this second eclipse. So welcome, girls. How are you both doing today?
Doing great. My daughter's birthday was yesterday, and I told her, "Look, there's a blood moon on the solar eclipse on your birthday. Isn't that cool?"
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Happy birthday to Aramis.
Thank you.
She's such a sweet kid. I really enjoy when I got to spend some time with her, and I'm doing good too. We're just hanging out. The dogs just came down to join, so I guess they're going to listen in.
Oh, cute. And what was it that gave you the idea for this show tonight for the topic?
Sherri and I were talking. We were trying to come up with some stuff, and she's been seeing a lot of stuff in her sessions. And I was thinking it's such a good topic because it really goes across the board. Everybody's dealing with, those kind of loops that you do energetically, emotionally, even in your, just in your own thoughts and stuff. So I thought that's perfect. That's something that everyone can relate to. Sherri, did you want to expand on what you've been seeing?
Because we're constantly trying to come up with ideas to help people going through similar things, and I think that all of us, even myself, are seeing a lot of patterns and a lot of loops, and we're trying to break these habits, break these cycles, and sometimes we don't even notice that we're in a cycle or we have these habits. So I'm seeing it a lot in my sessions, and it's reminding me of my own life and my own triggers. So I thought it would be a great topic to navigate through the challenges, how to identify them, what are the red flags, and what are the ways to step out of them. And we have lots of great, I think through the three of us, we have lots of great advice that we can give tonight.
Yeah, I think that, for me too, the last, I don't know, for sure last year, but for the last 2 years, I feel like there's a lot of times where I find myself and my family members, you kind of go on autopilot about things because otherwise the stress of the things that kind of were going on for us can get to you. And that's when those times where the energetic loop kind of thing goes in where you're having that, but it's even bigger than that because we were even talking about energy hijacking, right? With certain things that were going on. Did you guys want to talk about that a little bit?
Go ahead, Sol. You want to go first?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. So, yeah, I've seen it in a few different ways. We sometimes will have collective energy hijacking or energy harvesting, where there'll be certain kinds of propaganda or certain psyops and things like that, where they're really looshing. And even, to do with different holidays and things, you can see how they really will build on loosh. But when we look into energy hijack on an individual level, and this is why I always talk about MACE method as well, because with MACE method, it really does look at the identities that we have. And sometimes when we go through trauma or we experience pain or some kind of shock, we'll have a different identity that starts to form. And we see this with people that, are either like super angry or like super stuck in the victim side of things. And what happens is they tend to get entities that will attach onto that identity. So if we can dissolve and collapse that identity of where the trauma originally formed, we tend to close off the door or fill up the vacancy of the hotel for our energy body or our auric space. And so sometimes you'll see that thought loops naturally start to dissolve and break down. Sometimes it's an instant thing and you feel your aura come back super strong, like you're a superhero. So I do really love the MACE method sessions for that. But the other thing I really like too is just adjusting frequencies. So I've talked about it on the show a couple of times where it's just frequency shifting. So it's thinking or seeing and feeling that your aura has an energetic signature and just putting I could hear something going in the background. I'm not sure what.
It's my cat is rubbing his face on the laptop. I'm sorry, you guys. Go ahead.
That's okay. I've got Lyra snoring on the couch. I don't know if you guys can hear that. She's a tiny little thing, but she can snore. I just want to say hi to Soul Tribe that's in the chat too. So nice to have you guys with us. But yeah, so definitely frequency shifting. So feeling into your aura, is there a color or feeling or a shape? And then just changing it. So say you feel in it's a yellow triangle, just switching it up so it's like a little, pink star or something different, and holding that in your field, because these entities or energy hijacks do actually hook in. And what it looks like clairvoyantly, sometimes they look like dementors from Harry Potter, so the black ghostly looking things. Sometimes they'll have actual hook claws. Some of them even look like parasites that you see within the body. And the other thing too, if you are going through energetic parasites, there's a huge chance that there's physical parasites. So doing parasite cleanses, detox, we want to get the heavy metals out. And even when we look at psychotronic warfare and psionics and things too, those things more impact us if we have the heavy metals in the body. So the day and age that we live in now, we all need to be doing heavy metal detox as well as parasite cleansing, because a lot of, I guess, what we're experiencing isn't really us. And I think that's what we're, even from like childhood age, just because the environment's bombarded with the sprays and things that we now get in our atmosphere, plus the food, none of us really know that base level of who we really are organically. So the more that we can sort of detox and purge energetically, physically, the more that we're actually coming back to true self and that connection to higher self. And that's more when we can fill up our own space. And even I'll sometimes say to myself, if I'm in a thought loop, I'll say separate, and I'll visualize myself separating, creating space aurically from whatever the noise is, or, if there's a feeling or an identity around that, I'll just say separate, 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 and feel my auric energy come back to just being myself. And quite often that'll create space or clarity. The other technique that I will do is just say the word override and just imagine a big red button that like cuts everything. So that's a little bit about what I use tools and techniques wise. There's many other things like we've talked about, salt showers and baths and things.
Really
Can you go
quick,
back and share what MACE method is? Because I think someone...
that's what I was just going to say. Somebody asked.
So it's just spelled MACE, and it looks like I'm going to have someone on my show shortly that is an expert in that particular modality. So I first heard about it through Jerry Mazinski, who I think he was a psychiatrist or psychologist. Sometimes I get those two mixed up, which one he is. But he worked in psych wards, worked in mental hospitals, and what he found the common denominator between all of the patients that were experiencing I guess, or going through a lot of the trauma earlier on, tend to have formed that identity. And he noticed that there was entities attached. Now, where it gets weird is when he physically started to see things move. So he might be talking to a patient and there would be, I think one instance, the entity got aggravated. So they get aggravated when you recite Psalm it's 23 and 91. Anyway, there was something that he said that aggravated an entity in one of the interviews. He was talking with someone for one of the appointments, and there was a big crack that came across the roof and I think down the wall. So these things can not necessarily like incarnate into our physical realm, but some of these entities or demonic forces can use people or harness some energy to a certain level. And that's where on the extreme end of things, we see poltergeists and things. So MACE method wasn't formed by Jerry Mazinski. He's just said it's the one technique that he uses that quietens and shuts off that door to the entities. And then quite often people go on to have normal lives. And it's not saying that we need to be in that extreme kind of situation to have, to do the clearings and things, because it makes a difference for the everyday person too, whether it's, having more attention and focus at work or discharging us from stress or, emotional energy and things. I think the guy, when I've seen interviews with the man who developed it, I think he's actually Australian and ex-Air Force, and it was a technique, or ex-military, and it was a technique he used for PTSD to help people in warfare to be able to recover from things. And what it is, like if you're going through an appointment, you'll just be asked to come to the feeling. So say you're working with something, you don't even have to say what it is that you're working with. They'll prompt you just to identify the emotion, to trigger it, to bring it up, to feel it as deep as you can, and then just to see if there's a picture there with that. And then what happens after that is you'll do things. I don't want to go too much into the technique because it's not something you want to do at home. You really do need a practitioner to assist, is the one thing that they claim too. So anyway, you end up changing and shifting the picture, and then it's just gone. It's like whatever you were feeling before. And say if it's to do with, someone that you've been having conflict with as well, it's like that string is just fully severed, fully cut. So you end up feeling neutral after it. So imagine going through life and you're not getting triggers, you're not feeling like there's loose energy that's trying to like get you to think about certain things or get you to dwell and like have that rumination on certain topics. So it really quietens the noise on a lot of that. So hopefully it explained it a little bit. I know I can't talk about the whole experience of what it's like, but it really does help, especially if people have got, I know I've referred certain people that have experienced schizophrenia, bipolar, certain things like that, that I guess if we were living in different cultures, we would be maybe having those people trained shamanically, but to get a handle on it and to live a normal life, it is one of the best modalities that I've seen.
I think that was a great explanation.
Oh, thanks.
I'm just getting muted. Sorry, go ahead. The dogs, go ahead.
That's okay. My dog was just barking, but it's downstairs, so I don't think anyone can hear it, hopefully. But, I think that a lot of people that I'm working with too, I think identifying that you're in a loop also helps. What does that actually mean? What does it look like? And loops can have different layers to it, just like anything else. Sometimes you're in an ancestral loop, meaning that you through quantum entanglement, you're kind of like taking on this ancestral trauma from those that came before you. So you're in a cycle of abandonment or abuse or neglect or whatever it is. And then we have individual loops. So it's something that our soul might be working through, traumas that we've had individually. So then we're in loops of addictions, or we're numbing ourselves through loops of addiction. So we have these collective loops and we have individual loops. And I believe, the way I understand it through the sessions that I've had over the years, I've identified the way that the 3D has a stronghold over us is by creating collective loops, because it's more powerful when you have a lot of people all over the world in, for example, in a loop of addiction, because that means that all the entities and the system of the 3D can loosh off of the suffering and everything that comes along with that massive loop of addiction and all the people that are in it. So there's something to say about, AA. It's a great concept, but it keeps you in the loop. You're constantly going back and saying, I'm an alcoholic. That's what you're calling yourself. So anyways, that's just a small example of maintaining the loop. That's how they keep. So they think you think you're helping yourself when in reality you're maintaining the loop, keeping the integrity of the loop. So there's a lot of different ways to get connected with loops. But once you figure it out, you can see what your triggers are and your red flags, which is something we can talk about as well. And I'm interested to see what your guys' thoughts are. But some of the ways that I tell people that I see the most are the triggers is whether or not you identify with like some main points. Like, for example, you always find yourself hanging out with people that are perpetually negative or perpetually in the same similar loop cycle as you. Number one. So who you surround yourself with matters. Or do you have anxiety with the thought of changing? I have a lot of clients that come to me that are really excited about getting out of a loop and change, but then they're like, there's something blocking me, preventing me. And a lot of times it's fear of change, because they're like, I'm so used to being in this loop. I know this loop. I'm friends with this loop. I figured out the loop, and I'm kind of complacent with the loop in a weird sort of way. Like, it becomes comforting to them. And going out of these loops sometimes is really scary for people because they're so attached to the loop, because that's how they've identified themselves. And so, what's another one? Not feeling good when things are going well. Something's going to happen soon. I can't be at peace with being at peace. That's another one where you're just like, you can't allow yourself to be out of the loop. So you bring yourself back in the loop. So these are all identifying factors and red flags where people can evaluate what kind of cycle am I in? I can't speak today. What kind of cycle am I in? And how can that's really the first step, is identifying that you're in the loop in the first place. And then you can start. There are lots of ways that I recommend, which we can each go through our recommendations. But I think that that's really the first step, is hold on, I think I'm in a loop. That's step number one. And then step number two and things like that kind of precedes that. But I think it's important to understand the different types of loops.
I just want to add something quickly, if I can, about what you mentioned to do with the comfort zone and the anxiety. It comes back to neurology. So if we look at the way that our brains are wired, and we have the reticular activating system, and we have the amygdala in the brain as well, and that is all designed to try and keep us safe, keep us in the comfort zone. And quite often, we will get anxiety come up when we try and step out of that comfort zone. So we do really have to remind ourselves that we are human, and that our brains are geared to try and keep us small and keep us safe, just sort of in survival. So it does take a lot, and there's so many amazing tools and techniques to, break people out of that survival mode. Yeah, sorry, just wanted to mention that it's like literally within our brains.
Yeah, well, and that's what I was thinking too. It's like, you get emotional triggers for the things that you kind of keep cycling through, that you don't get any kind of resolution for. And, those things seem to play sometimes throughout people's life, even when you feel like you can walk away from it. When stress happens, when something else pops up that looks and feels similar, it's really easy to kind of go back into the thought process that you were dealing with at the time that you were dealing with it last, or whatever that was. And at that time, when you do that, you start taking on, I think you can go through times where you feel like you've grown a lot and you changed a lot, but when you have something similar that happens that's stressful, a lot of times it can kind of put you right back into that place where you're not thinking beyond what you've already moved through. Okay, I've done this and I did really well and I've moved through this. It's kind of like it looks familiar, and you didn't that you didn't do well last time that happened, or you were really struggling. And so it's really easy to emotionally get back into that place where you're kind of almost projecting a more negative thing than you need to, just out of habit, because you recognize that to be something that was really hard before.
Yeah. And I think subliminal messaging in so 3D interference is a big deal too. And that's what they hook, what Solreta's saying, they hook us into our nervous system, because our body works on repetition and patterns, because that's what keeps us in that, safe mode, where our body recognizes, okay, it's safe. So I just keep doing the same thing over and over again, which is how patterns get developed. And our 3D interference in our reality, I think it only perpetuates that. It feeds that system. So, there's a reason why, for example, every time you watch TV, there's two things happening. I mean, watch any show. It doesn't even matter. Put on the TV, any show you want. Two things are happening. Someone's drinking coffee. Someone's drinking some sort of brown liquor, or it doesn't even matter what type of liquor. A lot of times it's some sort of brown liquor, though, in a nice crystal glass. It looks so pretty and fancy. Or they're drinking beer. So why is that? Because they want to keep us on this perpetual cycle of caffeine and then alcohol. So we got these uppers and downers. And so this keeps us in a loop or a cycle. So when you watch TV and someone's drinking coffee, how many people have been like, oh man, that looks great, I'm going to get myself a cup of coffee? Or it makes you start thinking about that. Same with alcohol. Now, those are just two big examples, but it could be with anything. And so the subliminal messaging is the hook. It brings us into these patterns, because let's say you are struggling with addiction, and every show you're watching, someone's having this crisp, cold beer, and it just looks so amazing. And you're sitting there trying to fight these demons inside of you of trying to break out of a loop, but everything you watch is pulling you back in. And so that's another challenge. So and someone mentioned in the chat, it's not easy to break the cycle, and it's not. It takes courage to change. But I think the reason why we're doing this show here is to, one, let people know you're not alone, and two, just recognizing these triggers and connecting the dots makes you can create new thought forms and new patterns, and the brain starts to create new synapses, new pathways, and that's how we break the loop cycle, is by one little change every single day. can break us out of that loop or out of that pattern. But man, does the 3D, the way it's designed, it really just captivates us and anchors us in every way. And that's just one example. There's music, you name it, there's subliminal messaging everywhere.
Yeah, that's something Lisa was talking about backstage too, just about, the sort of music that you listen to. Did you want to talk about that, Lisa? I mean, not that example, but like if you wanted to
Yeah.
talk about just, how
Well,
there's certain psychological conditioning with some of the music.
definitely. I mean, it goes to anything that we're putting our attention into, movies and television and art, but definitely music. And I think the music industry right now, I mean, it's kind of really prevalent. Everybody talks about that aspect of it a lot. It's something that I think you can hear the frequency overlay. I believe, in the music, especially the music that's going on now. And I'm sitting there watching my daughters, and they're playing music, and they really like it. And I sometimes I ask them, I'm like, you don't hear that distortion, like aspect of it in there? You can't hear that?
Yeah.
And they're like, no, I don't hear it. I don't hear it. And after a while, I noticed, like, I start to get really grumpy when they start playing it, and I get a headache. And it doesn't even have to be really, really loud. But, if you're feeding yourself that vibration all the time, that frequency's constantly staying in your field, it gets such a potency in your field that you don't even have to have it on anymore. And you can see it in the field. It's, that, when your field kind of looks like it's doing this, but when that stuff gets in there, it gets this weird, like, wavy, you know what I'm saying? Like that weird wavy thing
Like
going
the
on.
mirage on a hot day.
And it's not even equal. It's just like weird spots everywhere. So, and everybody's not visual. I get that. It's not everybody can't see that visualization, but you can hear it, right? Do you guys hear that? Like that?
Yeah.
There's like an overlay.
I think what you're describing too, with some of like the energy around, it might be some of the pranic energy, and energy or prana. You can program and you can make thought forms and things like that with energy. A lot of us in this community have got to experience working with hands-on energy healing and making energy bowls, and you can program, different colors into it, or you can program, say, for example, in two hands, you might have a visual feather, and you can feel, oh yeah, that's really light, and then like a visual weight or something, and you can feel energetically the difference between the two. So when we're looking at thoughts and things, and the way that music's playing and how it interacts or hits someone's aura differently, it does change things. Because even though people might think auras are a little bit woo, it actually is part of the electrical part of our body. You can actually read charge energetically. It does go out about 6 feet. But one thing I wanted to talk about too, that Sherri was talking about, like with the identity stuff, and I see a few people in the chat just talking about like the alcoholic side of things as well. And so when people say that they are that, it's like they're reconfirming that identity over and over again. So I had a MACE method practitioner saying to me, to do with like, just anything that we are. So say you're one person here and you're wanting to go this way on your path. And, this is maybe like a job that you want to go for, or, getting out into the dating world, whatever it is. You've got all of your old identity stuff and the entities and the trauma and everything like that. And it's like you're trying to pull away to go here and move here. Plus, we're fighting against the old neurology of wanting to stay in the comfort zone, or stay in even sometimes the comfort of negative emotions and things or beliefs. And so when we take this away, we have more freedom to be able to move towards that destiny that we actually want. So any technique at all, even if it's hypnosis, we've got our in-house hypnosis or hypnotherapist here, Jake Ray. So anything at all that we can do to unbind ourselves from all of this stuff, strip back to be as energetically pure and unbounded as possible. So, I also had to mention, I had a dream in relation to this show last night. I forgot to tell you. So in this dream, my family, we were all taking I think it was a PBX detox spray. And then the house was filled with parasites, like all over like the floor of the house. there was all these like little worms and all sorts of like critters and creatures. And I was trying to like clean them up. And I'm like, oh, they're climbing up my legs. They're, climbing up everything, trying to get back into the bodies. So I just thought that was a really interesting dream to talk about the importance of physical detox as well, because we know that when there's parasites within, that a lot of the time there'll also be energetic parasites too.
They definitely are linked for sure.
Yeah. So some of these parasites you can even pick up walking bare feet outside. Say if there's a dog that's done its business on the ground, the rain's come and dissolved and washed everything away. Sometimes you'll still see parasites that are there. I know grounding's really important, but this is why we need to just detox regularly.
Yeah.
Jody put in the comments about tapping. I'm a huge fan of tapping. I do it a lot. I teach it to children, and it works really well. And the children love it because they think it's fun. And then they also, when they think it's fun, they forget why they're upset in the first place. But tapping is a great way to shift the energy in the body, and it also breaks us out of our mind. One of the greatest things about being human is that we have this beautiful mind. I mean, that's why people want to be human, is because they like the idea of our consciousness feeding through something of limited capacity, which right now the human brain is, because we only use like less than 10%, where before we've used a lot more. But right now, that this is what we're working with. So when you add emotions to it and this primal body that is designed to keep us safe. So it's like the conscious mind is important when you're primal, because it's going to make decisions for your safety. But then that can be very limiting. And then you have the emotional component. So there's lots of ways we can work. We can work with the system, but there's a lot of ways we work that the system can work against us. And so when you do tapping, you can rewire those synapses, and it calms the nervous system down, and then your mind can have more clarity, and you have a different pathway of thinking, which is really cool. One of my favorite things to do is heart-brain coherence. I talk about that a lot because I truly believe that, speaking of what I just mentioned, we have the human mind and the brain and the whole nervous system, all of it. The physiology of our body is really important. I mean, we are human after all, at least in this life. And then we have this whole other energy component that's our soul and our light body that funnels through the heart, and this beautiful electromagnetic field. That our heart is this expansive portal. It's not just this little pump that they talk about. I mean, it's a portal to different dimensions, to different realities, to different versions of ourselves, different layers. And then the brain is so intelligent. So if you can combine the two to synapse, to synchronistically work together, that's where the magic is. So how do you get the heart to be in tune with the brain? Well, we've got to calm the nervous system down, which we've talked about in other episodes, how to do that, and how to prevent the 3D from hacking into our brain, because that's what's happening right now through the technology that's used through many avenues, through AI. So they hijack our mind, and then our mind is perpetually negative, and then we become our own saboteurs, because I can't do this, I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy, all these negative thoughts. And then our heart, just that part of that portal shrinks in, because now we feel shame, or we don't feel like ourselves. So we can create this beautiful pathway where the two are working together. That's what the 3D doesn't want us to do, because that's where the power is. That's our superpower, if we can activate both. And there's a lot of ways to activate both. But one way I'll give, and then I'd love for you guys to add your own, is right brain activities. How can we stimulate our imaginative side to actually calm down the mind so it doesn't think so much? It's not worrying about everything. So anything right brain activities are really important. And then there's a reason why in school they took that out for the children. They don't want our children to be imaginative and creative. They want them to, and innovative. They want them to just, memorize, recite, take tests, all about memorization and just feeding the machine. And they don't get taught how to be creative. So we forget as adults, and that part of us gets turned off. And so whatever we can do to activate the right brain and be creative, bring those art supplies back out again, or, do crafting, or whatever it is, music, whatever it is that you desire to birth that creative aspect of yourself, I think extremely important right now. And I'd love to see what you guys think as well.
Yeah,
Go ahead, Lisa.
Thank you. I was just kind of being reminded, and when we do that, it's really good to come from a place of looking at what works best for you. And the reason that I was kind of wanting to put a exclamation point on that is because there are a lot of people that when I first was kind of going through awakening, and they would tell you all these different modalities and these different ways to do things. And then the longer that you interact with, those people or watching channels or whatever it is that you're doing, there's a lot of spiritual bypassing that's going on via these different types of things. So it's really to see what works best for you, because what works for Sherri isn't going to be what works for Soul necessarily, what's going to be work for me necessarily, right? So it's kind of like spiritual bypassing, where it's you lean on one spiritual tool or belief, but to avoid like healing and like your own shadow integration. So it's kind of to remember that when you're doing it, if it's uncomfortable and it's something that you're looking to avoid, then that's spiritual bypassing. It's when you're stepping into something and it's making you feel uplifted, or emotions in general. If you're feeling emotions, it's good because you're moving through something. You're allowing something to happen with that. So because I think there's a lot of people that you get stuck in that mid-awakening where it's like your energy surges don't fully integrate, and then it kind of creates this like stuckness, or there's like backsliding into old like habits, like old ego type habits and stuff. So, whatever works for you. I saw Jake was talking about, doing art, and that's a really good thing for me too. Really enjoys writing, so she's looking into that, music and playing music and things. So whatever it is for you, but make sure that by doing whatever the modality is that you're doing, that it's not through avoidance because you don't want to look at stuff that makes you feel a certain way. We all have things to heal, and that's normal. And this is a tough time. So, be kind to yourself and gentle, and just allow for the fact that you're going to have good days and bad days, and, lean on the things that make you feel good, and allow for the fact that there's going to be sometimes that you don't feel good. You feel kind of icky, but it's a process.
Yeah.
True.
And I've actually got one of the heart brain coherence, the heart math little devices that does the measurements. One of my gorgeous friends gave that to me.
That's wonderful.
So you can use, little devices. If you guys Google heart math, you can find where you can actually see electrically when your heart and brain come into coherence. But for me, I noticed that, when you look at the data on the screen, it's really just me going into theta and having the awareness of linking those two energy centers. So I usually will I'm just going to go into theta. I'm just going to work on cyclical breathing, which is the box style breathing. So, breathing in for the count of 4, hold for 4, out for 4, and hold for 4, and keep continuing. Usually about sort of 4 to 8 cycles will shoot people into that. And the other thing I've noticed just lately is when I go into meditation, if I can just soften and feel it into my aura, and then feel that plasma energy that's kind of tingling or touching my aura, I'm able to collapse my consciousness more into that quantum. And then I'm able to sort of shift and change, or put new thoughts in, or tap into energies of things that I want to create or, work with. But definitely the breath work will quieten things. But yeah, I just use that little technique of kind of feeling into the aura side of things and into the quantum, just to start to go, right, what do I want to feel instead? Because I do think it's important to clear, but then I think it's important to put the program in instead that we would rather feel. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
I love that. Creating new pathways through different thought forms is really, really important. I love the theta. Like the more we can get ourselves into those deeper levels of relaxation, however it is that anyone does it, whether they do a guided meditation, I'm a big fan of breathing. So that's like always my number one is, and I coach people I like to use progressive breathing. It's much like box breathing, but it's just a little bit different. It's more like you breathe in for 3, hold for 5, release 7, and your intention is you're bringing up anything into the surface of your awareness that's not serving you anymore, and then you hold it there, feel like it's, you know, just coming up into the into your lungs, and you exhale and you let it go. And the more you do that, you can definitely feel your body relax, and you get more into those deeper levels of relaxation. And sometimes people will get into delta and they just pass out. I mean, not in a bad way, but they're just so relaxed, and then they just find themselves like, let me just close my eyes for a second, and then they, you know, they take a little nap, which is lovely too, because sometimes we just we just need that. So I think that helps significantly. Sorry, Lisa, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, not at all. That's really good point that you were making, and I think that the thing is that we're all having to remember that there's a really simple way for us to look at what really, it's like it reminds me of an onion, and what I'm trying to say, it's sometimes the things look bigger, and the stress and all of that can come in, and it feels like there's a lot going on. But if you really look at it, if you really look at whatever is going on, sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes you're building it in your head because you're doing a lot of things that are what ifs or scenarios that haven't really happened, but there are possibilities that could happen. And so make sure too that you're not feeding that in kind of putting yourself in an energetic loop by projecting onto your situation all of the possibilities that could be happening. And I try to kind of stop when I feel myself doing that, and I close my eyes and take a couple of breaths, like Sherri was saying. And then I think, okay, I'm going to invite myself to just kind of be with myself again. And anything that isn't me, anything that's not mine, any energies that I'm feeling that aren't mine, I'm going to put outside of me. And I'm just going to sit with me and the energy that I know is that truly myself, and kind of breathe through it. And then once you do that and you put all of those things outside of you, and you can sit there, clarity comes in a different way, where it's like, okay, so I have these possible situations that are happening, or I really am dealing with a tough situation right now, but my anxiety, my stress about it, past beliefs about things, these are all things that I'm adding on to the situation, and it's really not what the situation is. It's my anxiety about what it could turn into, or what it could possibly, go wrong with it. And so, all of those things where, like Sherri was saying, where you can just stop and allow yourself to separate from these things for a moment and look at it, then you really can get some clarity about what you're really dealing with and what it is. And a lot of times, not all times, but a lot of times you'll find that, a lot of it is your own loop that you're putting in, and you're projecting. You're projecting because you've gone through something similar before and it wasn't a great situation. And so it doesn't mean that this has to be that too, because you've learned, you've grown, things have changed, and just allow yourself a minute to step back and zoom out a little bit.
I think that's important too, to give yourself praise for the things that you are choosing, instead of just dwelling in the things that we can't change. I just want to send some love out to some of the comments. I can see a few people having experience recently going through dark night of the soul energy. And I saw the lovely, I think it was Golden Trinity, was saying the breath work really worked for them as well, doing that, the box breathing that we were talking about. What I'm finding for me that's really working at the moment, if I'm in a little bit of a mental loop, either a walk in nature, because we're getting that beautiful prana, chi, life force energy that's coming in from the air, it comes in from the sun, or if you're walking barefoot, it comes in from the earth too. So 3 different forms of where we'll actually gather that life force energy. Meditation, yoga. I can find sometimes that doing the yoga, I might be in a thought loop, or, having stuff go on. By the end of the session, when you go into Shavasana, that lay down corpse pose position, it's like everything's still and you want to stay there forever. Usually you get about 2 minutes and then you have to hop up. Things like that, you'll notice the energy shift. And a lot of this involves moving the physical body. The other thing I find is sauna is really, really good too. So, and a bath, a salt bath. But I find it's generally 20 minutes to half an hour it takes for the mind, that monkey mind, to shut down, and then for like the nervous system to reset. So that's sort of really what I'm noticing works for me personally. Is there anything that you girls are using at the moment that you're really just loving, or you notice that there's an absolute change after you do it?
Yeah, well, my favorites right now are a couple things. Red light therapy, I'm a huge fan. So I do that 3 days a week.
Me
Running,
too.
which Lisa knows. Sometimes I'll be like calling people back after my run. I'm like, like I like cave and breathe, and I'm returning whatever on my cool down period. So red light, running, or any kind of exercise, whatever that looks like for other people, just getting your heart rate up. And my intention when I run is every time I exhale, I'm releasing. And I say that in my mind as I'm running. I'm letting go of anything that's holding me back, blocks, triggers, emotions, limiting beliefs. Like every day, every breath, I just a little bit more, I release a little bit more, because it helps me, especially with the type of work that I do. I'm constantly hearing people's, their worries and their struggles. And that can be a lot for me because as an empath, because then I feel like I don't want to inadvertently take on but I'm already taking on a lot of people in my family, because that's Divine Mother.
Yeah.
So you got to constantly make sure you have a release or an outlet. I'm a big fan of lymphatic drain, so I do that quite often. I have a vibrator plate, and then I also I stand on that for 15 minutes at least once a day, and it just helps, just like your whole body just vibrates, and it just releases toxins, and it moves circulation, moves your blood around. I make my children get on it too. They think it's funny because they'll put their feet out wide and it makes you shake more, and then they're like, and you're like, that goes your voice.
Even a deep squat. I find a deep squat on it where like your whole body is vibrating is great.
Yeah. And then my absolute favorite is sun time. Like that's why I'm so tan, because I love the sun, and I will just sit outside, and it's like healing. It's like every 15 minutes. And I mean, for like 15 minutes is really all you need. And you just sit there, and I just say, I just have this like affirmation that the sun is healing and rejuvenating me and my auric field and my body. And I find it very balancing, and I love it, so those are my favorite things to do.
Oh, they're wonderful things. How about you, Lisa?
It's similar. I mean, I would not all the way similar. I wish I was a runner or something like that, but I don't. But I love to go out and walk, especially if there's grass, which where we are, that's not something you come by very easily. You have to drive to it to find grass. So I appreciate it, love it. And when I can get some grass, forget it. My shoes are off. I'm like, I'll sit in it. I'm like a dog. I'm like, anywhere that I can to be in that. So I love that. But, and the sun, like she says, I'm really big on affirmations and talking to, nature and just kind of being in that space. That's where I find that I can kind of get myself to the best emotional, mental state where I feel like that's where I'm really coherent, is just when I'm if I can get up to the mountains, that's perfect. But that for me is the most important thing. I love to get in grass. I love the sun, lots of affirmations, and then just kind of talking to nature. I'm one of those weird people. I talk to the animals. I like to do all that. So
I do that too.
Oh.
One thing that I would love to propose to everybody watching this, and this is something that I actually do myself, and I work with my clients through this, that when you're feeling like you're stuck in loops, one of my biggest recommendations is just make one change a day, because our brains get used to these synapses, and they're repetitive, and sometimes it's so repetitive and so redundant, we don't even think or realize that we could close our eyes throughout the day and follow it, because we're just so used to doing the same monotonous kind of movements. Did we cut out?
I think for half a second.
We're back. I was like, where'd everybody go? Okay. So we were in these monotonous kind of like, we're on autopilot. And so that makes it perpetually easier to stay in loops, because we're one foot in front of the other. We're doing the same thing, Groundhog's Day, every single day, making the same choice. And so if like when you get home and you want to have that drink, for example, because you have this routine of at the end of the day, kids are asleep. I finally sit on the couch and I have a nice cool beer or something, right? And it's like something you look forward to. It becomes a pattern. You don't even think about it. You don't even necessarily want it. It's just like you reach for it. It's just part of your routine. So whatever it may be, it could be anything, even your coffee in the morning, or it doesn't even have to be something you ingest. It could just be a habit that you have that you'd rather not do. Maybe you don't want to sit on the couch every night and watch TV. So instead you might take the dog for a walk. The point is that you choose one change a day. It could be the smallest thing where normally I would go this way and I'm going to go this way and I'm going to do something else. And it really starts to shift. The nervous system starts to like, wait a second, what are we doing this? And you start to really change. You can change your habits and change your thought forms. And then what happens is you kind of get excited about the change and then you start to do more of that. And so the next day or after a while, you might do two things that are different, or you might find yourself going left instead of right, without even thinking about it, without even realizing it, or making a different choice, or reacting a different way to your children. And normally you would get really upset. So the easiest way to break out of loops, in my opinion, is to just shift one activity, one thing a day, break the pattern some way, somehow, and you work up to several a day. Or throughout the week, maybe multiple throughout the week, you've now broken the pattern, and then you create new pathways. So a lot of us, with the problem with loops is a lot of us, if you look at the metaphor of like, we're going down this path in the woods, and the path is so many people have walked that path that it's just so clear, like this is where you go. So you wouldn't think about climbing to the right or the left or veering off someplace else. But I think when you're in a loop, a lot of people are noticing right now that they're at the end of the path, and they're kind of like, this seems like a dead end. And I feel like I want to go someplace else, but when you look around and you don't see footsteps any other way. So people are kind of like, I'm not sure which way to go. I'm not sure which step to take. And a lot of us are there right now. That's where a lot of people are. And they're trying to figure out, where do I make the next step? And the way we do that is by just minor changes, minor shifts will create the illumination of the path that's best for you. And my favorite affirmation is I constantly say to myself every day, I'm so grateful that I am continuously in alignment with the timeline that is of my highest good. And I just keep reiterating that. Everything that I want in my life, I just say, I'm so grateful that the Aramis Creative Learning Center is already open and it's successful. I'm so grateful that my children are healthy and my family is thriving. I'm so great. I always speak as though things have already occurred and it's already there. And then I feel like the path illuminates for me, and those choices become easier and easier because they are just part of who I am and I don't have to think about it. But when you're starting from scratch, it's really about just making one change a day. That's all you got to do.
I love that. I think Bashar said that. I remember a couple of years ago seeing that. He said, any change, no matter how small, is a total change, right? Because you're doing something completely different. So I love that. That's great advice and so true. And I'm in that same place. And so before you popped on, Sol and I were in the back kind of talking, and that's what I was saying. I feel like, I'm at a place now where I know that I need to do some kind of major change, or I feel like I'm in the middle of a transition and I'm not sure what that step is. So I completely relate to that.
Yeah, I love those techniques. With the change side of things, I quite often will look into what's that identity version of myself that I'm on the path to become, and what's one thing that she does different compared to what I do now. So I know to close that gap from that version of self that exists in the present moment, to walk that one step closer. As Sherri said, just doing one thing a day, it really does make a difference. So I know for me recently, it's been, joining the gym. And now that's become part of my identity. It's just something that I do, every couple of days, or try and get that every day, but at least every couple of days. And I feel so invigorated, so strong mentally after I leave, and so just relaxed, and the endorphins that I get from it, that I'm starting to see more of how I'm becoming that closer version of that future self. So I sometimes in the past, when I've wanted to create change, I've been sort of at that crossroad point like Lisa's talking about, I'll often look at what is the one greatest thing I can do to create the most impact with change. So sometimes I'll look at the little changes and I can feel a little bit overwhelmed going, I've got like 10 changes that I need to do, or, and it's like, what's the one thing I could do that would maybe pull me into alignment a lot faster. So I know with the change I've made recently, it was going to gym. Because if I'm doing that, I'm in sort of like a different mindset, plus the endorphins and everything too. So sometimes it's like, what is the one thing I could do now to have the biggest impact on my life, or to have the greatest positive change? Because sometimes we can rip the Band-Aid off in the other direction and just go, I'm over this, I'm changing my whole life, which is sometimes a good thing. I've done that before.
Sometimes you want to, yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes you want to burn it to the ground, create your own tower moment and just begin again.
I know, right? Some of us need that push. I mean, and it doesn't have to be a big change. It could be something so small. Like instead of going and watching your daily show at night on the couch, you say, you know what? I'm going to go take the dog for a walk. If you don't have a dog, you go out for a walk yourself. Or you're like, you know what? I'm going to spend 20 minutes and I'm going to read something, or I'm going to write down, I'm going to make a list of things that I would love to change about myself, or how can I become a better version of myself? And it's just sitting and contemplating. It could be anything that just shifts the dynamics, because think about this energetically. You're going down a certain path at a certain speed. That's what this repetition is like. So you're just on autopilot. If you just shift the car 1 degree to the right or to the left, or you change the speed, that's all you need to do to shift the trajectory. And it doesn't have to be something big. So don't get overwhelmed and think, I got to make this big change. It could be, you know what? I'm not going to eat that nightly cookie at 9 o'clock before I go to bed. And you say, is this cookie serving my highest good? I don't think the answer is yes. So then you go to maybe you grab a piece of fruit, or you just drink a glass of water. The point is, it doesn't need to be something really big.
And
While
if you're
we're
watching
talking,
this, if you're watching this and you're thinking of cutting bangs, don't cut bangs just because you
Yeah. And this is a perfect segue, I think, for us talking about auras and kind of some of the things that we can do to change, what we're really wearing as far as our frequency and our colors. We were talking about some of the things that you can do that are simple things, because our beautiful friend Solreta can see auras. Not everybody can, but you can feel when you feel off, or when you feel like maybe you're a little bit down, and things. We were talking about some of the things that we can do in real time to change that and uplift ourselves. So do we want to talk about some of that? Oh, there's Emma and Finn.
Hey Emma, hey Finn.
I love your animals. They can shift your frequency.
So cute.
Yeah.
So one of the things we were talking about is what you wear, right? The colors that you wear. So did you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, as you guys have probably noticed on my channel, I wear so much pink, and it's medicine for the soul. It's so happy, uplifting. It's kind of like a little bit of, childlike energy as well as softness. So for me, pink just feels like medicine. And I don't have as much pink in my life as I once did. Sometimes I would be like head to toe in pink, and my kids would be like, oh my God, Mom, you're a walking Barbie. But sometimes, and Sherri was saying before as well, that usually two of us on the show are synchronized in whatever color. Today it's Lisa and I. So yeah, it's funny how, often going to meet up with friends for coffee, and something's just told me you need to wear that color today, and I'll turn up in the same color. But being clairvoyant, usually I'll have different people will be different colors to me, and it will be sort of a representation of their personality or the soul energy. But color really does make a difference. Generally, surround yourself with the softer pastel colors, because they're the more energetically nourishing, nurturing for the aura too, and more giving a soft healing energy. Some of the harsher colors, or like the murkier colors, are not often good. So like a putrid green or a brown, it's not going to be healing to the aura. So, have a look at what colors you're really drawn to, and that will just give you volumes of information. And if you are into the color side of things, Aura Soma, which are color therapy bottles that were originally made by a blind lady. She's mixed where you have like one color floating at the top of the bottle and another one underneath. We've talked about them on my show a couple of years ago, I think. But what it is in a color therapy reading with Aurosoma, you pick 4 bottles. And I think one represents you on a soul level, one represents like where you are past, present, and then I think the other one's future. And it's so interesting because they're so accurate. So there's so much intuitionally that is linked with color. And to me, color has always been a language. So even when I was writing my How to See Auras course, which is over on Maison Jupiter, color, like each different color that we see, depending on where it's sitting in the aura too, will speak volumes. So yeah, if you are interested in that, do go check out How to See Auras. And I was thinking about teaching it in person over here in Australia because, after our crazy lockdowns and things, I'm so missing just being in a room teaching workshops and being amongst people. So I think, that might be on the cards for maybe a little bit later this year.
That would be so cool.
That sounds awesome. I want to take that class. That would be
I know.
fun.
We'll run about. Me and John took it online, but if you had it in person, that would be so fun. Also, Sherri, did you want to talk about some of the things that we can do to shift as far as things that we wear or we eat?
Yeah. Well, I think colors say a lot about some, people and who they are. So you could also learn a lot about somebody based on the colors they're wearing or even the moods that they're in. So like I'm wearing a black, you can't really see it, but it's just a black shirt. I tend to wear black a lot, not because I'm depressed, not because I'm angry, but if you knew me well enough, I generally wear black most days of the week. And it's because I'm always hiding. When I'm not on camera and I'm not at a conference, I am mom. And I prefer to be a nobody in the loveliest way. I'm saying that I don't want to talk to a lot of people, and I just want to blend in. And I blend into the background. I don't talk a lot, and I just want to be left alone. I'm like such a hermit and so shy, and so I could be really awkward too, in big groups where I'm not comfortable. So I kind of just stay to the back. So when you're wearing black, a lot of times it's just like you're kind of hiding. You just don't want to be seen, and that's me. So people who know me, they're like, that makes total sense. But when I am doing conferences, I'll wear bright colors, or you'll wear, red when you want to feel like you are like a leader, or there's like that part of you that wants to take ownership of like presenting some material that's important, or like the bright colors. Depending on where you're from, your colors can change too. Like every single person that I've met that is fairy realm, which I tend to attract the fairies in my life, they always wear neutral colors. They always like the browns, the greens. They're like nature colors, and they're very neutral, like earthy. They wear a lot of earth colors.
That's both my girls. Both of my girls are like that. They both stay in all the earth tone neutrals.
Yeah. And I don't really like green, and I don't really like browns and things like that. And I do wear a lot of red because when I'm ready to be in my power, then I'll wear red because I'm like, okay, you can look at me now, right? On Zoom, it's different because whatever, we're on a screen. So it's not relevant right now. I am wearing black. But the point is that it can tell a lot about who you are. And they say that if you're working on being like your root chakra, then you wear red. You should wear more red. Or if you're trying to open up your solar plexus, wear more yellow. Eat more yellow foods if you want to open up the solar plexus, or eat more red foods if you want to open up that root chakra. So colors really are relevant, and it tells a lot about people and their personality if you just pay attention. Where people are wearing white a lot, they're in like this rebirthing process, reinventing themselves, trying to like they're bringing back the innocence of themselves. So maybe they're going through a phase. So anyways, we don't want to go through all colors of the rainbow, but it really does matter, and it really can affect your mood.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. What else, Sol? What other things do we have that can affect our auric field that we can do in real time to affect that in a positive way?
Yeah, the first thing Spirit's just showing me when you asked that question was just making sure that we cleanse off. So if we've been around a dirty environment, or, out in a shopping center, we don't want to take home any thought forms or hitchhikers or things like that with us. So whether it's using, an aura spray for clearing, or doing a grounding technique, or even just consciously, choosing to discard or disintegrate any of the energy that we may have picked up. So often sometimes coming into the home and just leaving everything at the front door energetically. But yeah, I love the salt techniques, or even I've got this little spray that one of my best friends made for me, which is Saffron, who I've had on my show. She's a herbalist. So this is salt, sage, and silver. And she's put this cool sticker on the front. And it's just one of those bottles that you just spray. It's an auric mist. So like if I'm looking for something really quick, just to, cleanse and refreshen. Otherwise, I'll do a pranic healing session on myself where I'm actually energetically cleansing the aura and doing like a little bit more in-depth work. And it's amazing when you're doing that because you can actually feel things. Even if I'm working on myself, I can feel things coming out of my aura. And it leaves you kind of feeling stripped back and fresh. And yeah, that's probably my favorite thing that I'm working with at the moment.
Before we go, I just wanted to wrap up. I was looking for it and I couldn't find it, but I did take notes on it. This girl was talking about the different types of jewelry that you can wear and what it does. And she went really into like, rose golds and all of these other things. Oh, sorry. 1 second.
That's okay. They agree.
Yeah.
Gianna came in. And so anyway, he was, but the one thing that the couple that I did take it on was gold, silver, and copper. And what she was talking about, what that does. So gold is radiant and majestic. It amplifies your power. It aligns with source, and it's best for like manifesting abundance, solar rituals, and then sovereign embodiment. And then silver is reflective and mystical, and it's a protection. It's good for intuition, and it's good for feminine energy. And it said it's best for like shadow work, full moon rituals, and empath shielding. And then copper is conductive and grounded, and it's good for its strengths. There's like energy flow, creativity, and physical vitality. And it's best for rooting ideas, healing tools, and connection to like earth energies. And she said a lot of other things too. I wish I could find it to show you guys at least where to look for it. But the one thing that I remember she's saying is that if you're trying to bring something in and manifest it, be careful about which one that you're wearing, because if you're trying to call something in, silver is probably not the best one to be wearing because you're reflecting that actually and pushing that back away. So I thought that was interesting because I was wearing silver all the time. When I was younger, I wore gold, only gold. That's all I wore. And then I went through a phase where I liked silver, and I probably for like, I don't know, a good decade, all I've worn is really silver. And I'm kind of been leaning toward gold more again. And I was looking at, I don't really own a lot of gold pieces anymore, but I was telling John, I think I want to have some more gold again because I'm feeling that. And then I saw this. So what do you guys think about that?
No, I
love
that. I resonate with that so much because I wore silver forever. And that was when I was in my like, don't come near me phase. I don't want to talk to anybody. I don't like anybody. And I was wearing that for a long time. And even white gold, just because it was like reflecting, like just, and for the last like 5 years, I switched over. Not that I just got over my angry phase. I've been over it for a while, but I started wearing gold more in the last 5 years. And now I went from wearing all white gold, all silver to I really only wear gold now. And I hated gold for the longest time. I like people would buy it for me, like family members, and I would never wear it. I would just put it away. And now it's all I wear. So it's so interesting because I resonate exactly with what you say. It really matters. And same with crystals. So if you're really sensitive to crystals, you got to be careful which crystals you're wearing. Amethyst is my favorite and it's really powerful. But when I was wearing amethyst as a pendant, a lot of the times it was activating my heart way too much. And I was getting heart palpitations and it was just activating my energy and amplifying so much. So again, you got to be careful know the crystal you're wearing and how it works and how it resonates with your body, because it could be different for everybody. At least it could wear the same pendant and be totally fine. So it's relevant with the stones too.
Yeah. And I think there's a reason why the ancient Egyptians had so much gold, in the tombs and jewelry. And it's so amazing if you ever get the chance to go look at some of their ancient jewelry, just the level of intricacy in some of the pieces, it's mind-blowing. And I see Benno saying gold won't kill werewolves too. So it is interesting how, we link the silver bullet or like silver to things. So I think it's interesting. Saf's put silver in her little aura spray too. But even when I've worked with acupuncture needles, there's different metals that you'll use to either stimulate or to take energy away and things. And so it's really important. I encourage my kids for earrings. It is better to wear gold. It is sort of more, it's not overstimulating like silver can sometimes be, because you have, with working with, I guess, bringing harmony and balance, sometimes silver can be like a little bit too stimulating. And sometimes gold will be just like that energetic sweet spot. And just speaking of piercings really quickly, you do have to be careful. Sometimes people that have got spinal or back problems or even problems with the eye might be having like the wrong metals in the ears. And you literally see them with piercings all up the spine. And then they start to develop, spinal issues, back problems, things like that. So choosing to wear specific metals can sometimes rebalance or taking them out altogether can also help. But I think this has been such an interesting chat today. I just want to say thank you to everyone for joining us and watching across all of the different channels. And Lisa and Sherri, I just love chatting with you both. And I always feel energized and just inspired after talking with you both.
Thank you. I feel the same way. I love our little chats, and most of you guys know I'm not doing like anything on my channel right now except these, because I love talking to you guys and I get so much out of it. So thank you both for doing this with us, and all of the people that participate. We love seeing your comments, and that's why I decided just to put them up, because they're all so good. It's like trying to pick, and I thought, I'm just going to put them all up. So.
I didn't even know you could do that, by the way. I was like, how did she do that? I've never done that before.
I'll show you.
Yeah. Thank you to everybody. And somebody mentioned, I wish we could put all the chats together. I don't know is that even possible? I don't know how to if we're streaming on 3 different channels, I don't know if it's possible to put everything in one place. That's really challenging because not everybody can interface at the same time. So that is.
But I can do this where we're putting it up, and then if you're reading the screen, you'll still be able to answer each other, even if you're in a different place, just by kind of communicating via what you're seeing on the screen. So maybe that's the way we do it going forward.
Yeah, no, I like that. I like that. If it's not too distracting to people, it's nice to have it there.
Yeah. Well, thank you, everyone. Thank you for joining us. And I guess we will look into when we're going to do our next one. It's been about every 2 weeks, right? That's kind of how it's been working out.
I think it's a perfect amount of time to kind of do one every other week. And if you guys have any suggestions, leave us a comment in the whatever channel, in the actual video comment section. And like, if you have ideas or questions or thoughts, we can always, add that to our list.
Yeah, that's perfect. And then we can, address that too, because what you guys are going through and what you're talking about is exactly why we want to do this, because we're all going through this together. So let's, cover the things that you are really struggling with or interested in. That would be perfect.
Yay. Thanks for joining us,
everyone.
Bye.
Thank you. We'll talk to you guys later.
Bye.